Hello, welcome to Culture Vultures podcast. I'm Marcus,
I'm Weston, and he's Luke. And we
and
can't hear
Luke
him.
is having technical difficulties again.
Why does Discord hate me so?
I do not know. Okay,
You want to try that again?
yeah, we can try that again. Hello, welcome to Culture Vultures. I'm Marcus,
I'm Weston.
I'm Luke.
and this episode we're doing another Halloween themed episode, and I proposed that we all listen to the album Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath. So starting out, does anyone have first impressions?
I liked it. I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to like it.
It was good, but I've listened to some of Black Sabbath and Ozzy's later stuff, and I prefer that a lot more.
So yeah, this is their debut album from 1970. So it is very early Black Sabbath, and it's a lot more blues and like 60s rock sort of style. The reason I picked this album is because, one, I thought some of the songs kind of fit with the Halloween vibe, and second, because this is kind of the album that's credited with inspiring the entire genre of metal, specifically with a certain song you might be able to guess if you've listened to it.
There are some guesses that I have for that.
So the first song, Black Sabbath.
Yep, that was awful. I liked the rest of the album, but the title track, Black Sabbath, did not do it for me. It really just felt to me like a Rush song, one that wasn't really completed, and then they just brought in a different vocalist that really wasn't that talented yet. No reason.
Yeah, and it was kind of boring, to be honest.
Yeah. It was like a Rush song, but without the soul.
A Rush song?
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that, but
Necromancer, their longer, kind of slower, drawn out story ones.
I mean, I can see that maybe with these combined songs in the middle and end, but Black Sabbath stands out to me as more of a doom metal sound. It's very slow and ominous and dark.
Like the Necromancer.
Maybe I haven't listened to that in a while. It's not what I think of when I think of Rush, I'll just say that. But I wouldn't be surprised if Rush took some inspiration from that, because all of the metal bands and rock bands were going to take inspiration from early Black Sabbath. That's probably my favorite song on the album, so it's definitely different. So it might be a multiple listen sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe. I enjoyed it. I think it went well with the album, but it was definitely the most forgettable song, to be honest.
Wow. Yeah, I have the complete opposite impression.
Yeah, I agree with Weston on this one.
Interesting.
It is one of their most famous songs. On this album, that is probably the most famous song on this album. The others I enjoy, and I think they have some really cool aspects that I noted down. But Black Sabbath just feels like a completely new revolutionary thing, with the slow, menacing doom vibe that's coming through in the track, with the melody being more dissonant, less bluesy, and the vocals and guitar kind of following that same sort of melodic vibe. And then when it starts building up in intensity towards the end, I'm like,
yeah, it's pretty good towards the end, but it takes so long to get there.
Yeah, the end was really good, but then the rest of it was just because as I said, because I'm a big fan of early Rush, and early Rush has something closer to that sound. Normally it's a brighter thing. It's not as much the doom and gloom kind of a thing, but it is still kind of the same style, but a bit brighter, if that makes sense.
So let me ask you this: how did you listen to this? Because this is the kind of thing that you really want to listen to with good headphones, because it's a very bass and heavy sort of sound that comes through. And this is the type of music that I always turn up. So how'd you guys listen to it?
I listen to this in my car, but I pretty much always have the bass all the way up.
I blasted it with some speakers while working out, so I think that actually is one of the better ways to listen to it for me, at least. this kind of music.
I think my opinion of this is probably not as positive as it would have been previously, just because as of late I've been getting out of rock, and like I still enjoy it and stuff, and I can still see the value, but it doesn't do it for me as much as it used to. So like I think if you asked me about this album a couple years ago, I would have been much more like positive about it and liked it and enjoyed it a lot more than I do now. But I still liked it. I
Okay.
thought it was really interesting because the one track, it's one of the multi tracks, but it's the first part of it. So Wasp
Hmm.
reminds me like a ton of Black Betty. I just thought it was kind of weird hearing that from Black Sabbath because from what I've heard of Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne, that's something that I never would have expected.
Yeah, it's got that classic rock sort of sound.
Yeah, and it has, like you said, a lot of blues, especially in like The Wizard and Wicked World.
Mm-hmm.
It's like crazy blues.
Yeah, so Black Sabbath are they're kind of like Zeppelin, but slowed down and turned up to a more heavier, crunchier sound, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So they got that blues running through all their music on this album, which I could have recommended later albums where they kind of came into their own sound away from that.
Mm-hmm.
But this album specifically, they really have that blues sound going, and I think they pull it off really well.
Yeah, I think it was really good, and like I feel like everything was really good. But you can definitely tell that Ozzy at this point was not that good of a singer.
I would probably agree. The vocals were not the main selling point for me.
Yeah, like overall, like all of the instrumental stuff was really well done.
Although I will say on Black Sabbath again that he kind of sells that song for me on there, but
I really didn't think it was that good.
I think he really sells the soul of that song, especially with like the screams. If you kind of have to embrace the vibe that song is going for of a guy like being tormented in hell, and like I feel like the whole band sells it.
I think my favorite track was or I guess it's also multi-track, like the last one, like the long instrumental section. I guess that's Sleeping Village. It's pretty cool. A Bit of Finger has kind of that dark, ominous, slow stuff that you were kind of referencing a little bit. Well, actually, I don't know how far that goes. Anyways,
So we were talking about his vocals.
Yeah, like later Ozzy stuff, like you can tell that he really improved. And I don't think Ozzy ever really gets to the point where he's like a fantastic singer, but he has a unique voice that works
Yeah.
with a lot of the stuff that he does. And with this, even with Black Sabbath, I felt like he just didn't do as good of a job. And like having heard later Ozzy coming back to this was just kind of disappointing because even though, as I said, like I don't really view him as like the best singer, I normally really enjoy his vocals because it's unique and it ties in with kind of the theming and atmosphere. Like with this, I can definitely see how he was going to tie in with the stuff, but like his voice just sounds different, and like it's clearly not he's not as high of a skill at this point. So it was just kind of disappointing for me on the vocals end throughout the whole album.
Yeah, I would agree, though I don't think it impacts my enjoyment of the album just because I don't think the vocals play as huge a part in my enjoyment of this album in particular. But
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree that his vocals aren't as developed as later on. And I'd also agree that he's not like the greatest singer ever, but he has
Yeah.
his own unique thing that fits really well with what he does.
Mm-hmm. Man, he is brain dead now, though.
Yeah, I've kept up with that.
I haven't really kept up with it closely, but there was a meme that went around a while ago, and he's so messed up. He has beer in his room, and then he drank it, and then he comes out and he's like, "Where's all my beers?" And then you got what's her name, Sharon or whatever, and she's like, "I don't think anyone stole your beer, honey." And then he's like, it's just the greatest thing because he's just so freaking brain dead. And even at that point, even after all of his substance abuse, all he can think about is beer. And it's just so
Yep.
bad. It's
That's
sad.
the rock and roll lifestyle for sure. I'm pretty sure he got kicked out of the band for drug abuse.
Oh, yeah, he was
And got
bad.
got replaced by Dio, which I haven't delved into that era of the band much.
I didn't. Yeah, I knew he got kicked out, but I hadn't listened to anything since he got kicked out. But I am a big Dio fan. Yeah, I enjoy a lot of Dio.
But back to Black Sabbath. So this is a much more raw sound, I think, than that side of metal. Like that side of metal is more like the polished poppy stuff, which I do enjoy, like Rainbow and Dio
Holy.
and later Sabbath. But this early stuff really has that 70s sound, and that's kind of what I really like about this album, is that it combines the best worlds of like 60s rock, like Zeppelin rock, with what's to come with metal in the 80s. So that's just an aspect I really appreciate. But we can talk about some of the specific songs, I guess. So I don't know if you guys looked at any of the lyrics or anything.
I didn't really look at the lyrics. What I caught, I didn't really like.
Yeah, it was all right. I mean, I didn't look that much. I know that The Wizard is kind of Lord of the Rings inspired, so I wondered if you'd pick that up,
Yeah,
picked
a
up on
little
that.
bit.
Black Sabbath is, again, probably a standout in that regard for me, even though it's really simple. It just fits with the instrumentals vibe that they're going for.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be our kind of like most boring episode, just because like it doesn't seem like Weston and I really has much to say about it. Like, it's good. It didn't really impact me hugely. Like, certain parts of the song stuck out and everything, and like the instrumentals and stuff were really good. Like, it's not something that really like stands out to me, and like it's not something that I'll probably ever come back to.
Yeah, I definitely like it. It's not one of my favorites or anything. I had to go revisit it myself because it's not like one of my favorites that I know inside and out or anything. And it's going back, it's probably not even my favorite Black Sabbath record. But there's certainly the production, I'd say, is really good. Like I said, I like that raw style production. I'd say I like the instrumentalism. Like they kind of sound like they're jamming, even though it doesn't get into like really jammy territory where it loses me. I'd say it feels structured, but still kind of natural and jammy at the same time. So I appreciate that. Say the bass really stands out. There's a lot of songs where the bass really leads things while the guitar is just kind of doing its own licks and riffs. But the bass is really leading things. The drums are not super technical, but they're solid. And sometimes the interplay between the guitars, the bass, and the drums, the bass, the guitar are really good. Like in Wicked World in the beginning.
Yeah, I think the thing that stands out to me the most about this album is how really like each song and each segment really is very different, and almost like a lot of them almost hop genres. Like it feels like there are a bunch of different genres encapsulated in this album, and I did really enjoy that because, like as you guys have mentioned, there's like blues, there's like that early doom metal, there's kind of like some 70s rock, 80s rock, and like I even noticed like quite a few different parts that were like a lot more like prog rock, like closer to like prog or math.
Yeah, and there's like the harmonica in Wizard, which somehow
No, isn't that
fits
Wasp?
really well. It's the Wizard.
Okay.
It has the harmonica. Wicked World has this, after this like really groovy bluesy thing, it goes into this like, at some point it goes into this beautiful like guitar interlude that's like just the guitar.
Yeah.
And it just creates this atmosphere that's like completely different but fits
Yeah,
so
the
well.
whole time I was listening to this album, though, I was just wishing I was listening to Mr. Crowley instead. It's like,
So you like that more polished hard rock.
yeah, for Ozzy, yes. For Ozzy, yes. Because I do like the kind of like less polished stuff, but not for Ozzy. I feel like his sound was a lot better in the later stuff, like Mr. Crowley and stuff. Because that's like a really good song, and that one there is like nostalgic for me too, because I heard it pretty early on into me like really exploring music. It was one of the first songs that I kind of found on my own, and really enjoyed. So it's kind of nostalgic for me too in that sense. So like the whole time I was listening to this, I was like, why am I just not listening to Mr. Crowley instead and like catching up back up on that album, because I gave that album a couple listens through, if I remember correctly, and enjoyed quite a few of the songs on it. So I was just kind of like, why am I not listening to that instead?
To me, it just feels like a
Oh
completely
yeah,
different
that's
thing.
why.
But I just enjoy them
Yeah.
both. I'd say definitely delve into like the first 5 Sabbath records because they probably Master of Reality and Paranoid in particular
hmm
are supposed to be really good. And like we've said, this is their debut, and they kind of really develop and take off from this song,
Album.
from this
Yeah.
from this album after this. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to checking out more Black Sabbath. I've listened to a lot of it, but it's one of those that I haven't really delved into enough to know each album, off the top of my head.
Yeah, like for me personally, like I don't think I'll really ever get into Black Sabbath, or even just straight up Ozzy Osbourne. But like there are songs that I really enjoy, and I do definitely want to go and revisit Mr. Crowley and potentially even the album that's off of. But like for me, like it's good. It's definitely good. I can't deny, like its musical quality or anything like that. But for me, it just doesn't do it for me. At least like where I'm at now with my musical enjoyment, because like as I said, I'm just really not a big like 80s rock person right now. Even a lot of the bands that I've really enjoyed throughout my entire life, I'm kind of like, on now.
Yeah. Well, I definitely see early Sabbath as more of a 70s rock thing, and I tend to like that sound a lot better than the 80s more like polished
hmm
radio sort of sound, which it sounds like you're more attracted to. I do appreciate both. I have albums that I love from both, but yeah, I get it. There's certain sounds that you just fall out of love with for a while, and maybe
Oh
later
yeah,
you.
I can almost guarantee that I'm going to come back around to like rock and stuff because there are still like certain like subsects of rock that I currently really enjoy. But like that kind of you know 80s and 70s, I'm like on right now. For me though, I've never really been a big fan of like the 70s style of rock. There are bands from the 70s that I really like, but the kind of 70s style overall is not really my thing, which is kind of interesting because the 70s is a bit more like unpolished, as you've been saying. Like for me, like I love going and finding like a really unpolished garage band and stuff, but like going back and listening to actual 70s stuff, I'm just kind of like eh.
Yeah, I will say if anyone wants to get into metal in particular, the first 5 records of Black Sabbath, even though they're not really pure metal, they're a great entry point for people who are into like rock and that side of thing because they really were the transition point into metal, and then from there you can get into whatever bands. You can get into Dio, you can get into Rainbow, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Metallica, whatever. Definitely, if you like rock and you want to get into metal, Black Sabbath is a great starting point because they kind of created the genre, even if purists don't really want to
Mhm.
call them
My
metal.
gosh, metalheads, they're just like the most obnoxious fans.
Yeah, well, I haven't really
I
interacted with
haven't
them,
too
but
much, but what I have is just been miserable. They do make pretty good customers because they're normally pretty polite. They normally come in and buy stuff. I worked at a store that sold music for a while. But they don't ever clean up after themselves. They always leave whatever they were touching a mess. But normally they're pretty nice and everything, so it kind of makes up for it.
so they're like the sci-fi fans in the library, is what we're
Um,
discovering.
yeah, but sci-fi fans normally aren't really even polite or buy stuff because it was like a pop culture store that I
Yeah.
worked at.
You guys should be careful, man. You guys should be careful. Don't offend
Yeah, we,
our
we
fans that we
totally.
definitely have.
So what are the most cancerous
Oh,
fan
furries.
groups? Let's find that out right now.
Furries. Oh yeah, they're just awful. They're just
Furries?
degenerates. Furries and let's see what else. Star Wars fans are really bad.
One day someone's gonna pull this up. One day someone's gonna pull this up.
And I will stand by my
I'm pretty
opinion
sure no one
that
will, but
furries are nasty, awful degenerates for my entire life. Oh, anime fans are awful.
so if we had to make a ranking, who's an S tier
Well,
of cancer?
I feel like furries are kind of like almost furries almost
That's
have
for
to
a
go
different
by a
episode.
different rating scale because like they're technically a fandom and everything, but like they really aren't one unified thing. It's like one specific. It's almost like a fetish, you know. I mean, it is a fetish, literally, but it's like less of a fandom slash fan base and more of like a fetish and a collection of a weird subculture that bleeds out everywhere else into other pop cultures. So I don't feel like we can really rank them with that. So I'd say probably anime fans or Star Wars fans, like hardcore Star Wars fans.
What about comic book fans?
Comic
How
book
cancerous
fans,
are they?
it's kind of hit or miss. Normally they're elitist.
They can be.
Yeah, normally they're
Pretty
elitist and they've got their heads up their own butts, but like they aren't the most cancerous.
It's. I don't think the casual comic book fan is very bad, but what you see mainstream, they can be like pretty.
Yeah,
Pretty
having
cringe.
been in, because like I ran a comic book account for a while on like Instagram, just for the heck of it. They weren't awful. They were closer to normal people, but they were still obnoxious and stuff, and they were definitely elitist. But like compared to other fandoms, they aren't as bad. But like the hardcore comic book fans, oh, they're awful. Like the really hardcore ones, they're really bad.
What about gamers and role players and whatnot?
Oh, some D&D
A
players are
lot
like
of
really
D&D
terrible.
players are. Um,
They're like
yeah,
actually terrible.
a lot of them are pretty dang bad. It's the worst part about D&D is finding a group, because you got to find a group of people that plays the game and isn't awful. Like D&D fans are normally just
What about Weston can tell us about League of Legends players
Oh,
God.
we don't want to talk
Can we
about
just
that.
agree that like pretty much all fandoms are S tier?
of cancer?
Well, the thing is,
Can you think of one that's like that stands out as like actually not
The
cancer?
closest one that I can think of is the Doctor Who fandom, because normally they're pretty nice and everything, but they're just super cringe.
Okay, yeah, I have not ever
This
interacted
doctor doesn't count. She's a woman.
I mean,
with that.
let's be honest.
She's not a woman. She's an alien.
I haven't actually watched
Come
it, so I have no
guys.
opinion yet.
Let's not. Let's not. Let's not get started there. I think what it comes down to is if you're defining yourself by a hobby, then it's just like if that's who you are, there's no way that
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not going to be toxic.
Definitely right there, because you fire your whole personality into one tiny little section, and they all tend to breed some sort of an elitism. Like I've heard guys go off about
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm better than you because I've played more video games than you, and it's like, no, that just means you have no life.
I really don't have a life because I haven't really met any of these people. I'll say there's some really annoying literature students, but that's about the
Well,
closest
Marcus, you
thing
yourself
I've
are
met.
an obnoxious music person.
That's true.
Hey, we're finished with this episode, right?